And welcome back, everyone, to Box Office Report. Today, on the 25th of January, 2026, man, January's almost over. Which, I'm not complaining that much. January is such a month. I'm not, I mean, my Mark's birthday's in January, so like, good, Mark was born and all that, but never usually a good movie month. You were really just trying to get to the next month, and it's the dead ass of winter. We're currently getting hammered by a storm outside right now, so yeah, I can leave January personally. Besides, next month is February. First off, more movies coming out, more high profile movies, and Pokemon Day comes out is next month. So and hopefully we should be getting Real Gen 10, which I'm like hilariously excited about. But anyway, that being said, number one this week. Hey, look, Avatar Fire and Ash finally got knocked off its pedestal. Mercy debuts at number one with $11.1 million. Avatar Fire and Ash made $7 million, dropping 51.7%. Zootopia 2 made another 5.7, dropping 37.8%. 28 years later, The Bone Temple dropped 66.5%. Oof. And The Housemaid made her 4.2 million, dropping 50.8%. Mercy debuting with 11 million, basically 11 million. Good for Mercy. I should say good for Mercy. However, Mercy is made off like $60 million. This is actually kind of a repeat of last week with Bone Temple, where that's not a good opening weekend. That's really not. It doesn't help the fact that Mercy is carrying about a 20% Rotten Tomatoes from their critics. I didn't check what the audience score was. I know it was fairly higher than the 20%, but that 20% is still indicative of like what a lot of, because again, I always got to repeat this point for people. So don't listen to the critics. Critics are movie fans. There's a reason they go into this line of work. You don't go into be a critic unless you like movies. So we do have to take that into consideration. But I do also agree with a lot that the critics who do vote on things like Rotten Tomatoes are do this so often that they are looking for things that probably aren't there sometimes, like, oh, it's doing this badly or whatever. So look, Mercy actually has an 81% on Rotten Tomatoes from the audience. That's at least a good number, but I'm sorry, even if it had 100%, there's no way this film's making its money back. At a $60 million budget, admittedly a low marketing budget, I'd guess, so probably about $30 million, I'd guess, you're looking at a film made, roughly speaking, on $90 million. Take out the fact that the studios get a third, roughly, and you're looking at a film that has to hit like a buck 35, 135 million to break even. Even though this film made the exact hell, even though this film doubled the amount of money it made domestically next week, made $22.2 million. There's no way on God's green earth this thing makes its money back. And 81% is just not enough audience to go back and support it. The only way this thing could even be remotely saved is if the international comes through. But right now, there's no international number. I think I saw on like a Wikipedia that allegedly it's like 22 million, but I haven't seen anything that confirms that otherwise. So Amazon's not having a good start to the year. In fact, most of the movies this year aren't having a good start to the year. Why did Mercy fail though? And let's be honest, 20% from the critics, 11 million opening weekend on a $60 million budget. Yeah, that I think is we can say is a flat out bomb. That's bombing. So why did it bomb? Well, again, I think I'm gonna be honest. The trailers weren't the best. Like if this were an Amazon premiere, like directed Amazon movie, that'd be one thing. It actually would be a really low budget straight to streaming movie. I think, and that's the problem with this film. This did not look like a film for me that was a theatrical release. This did not look like a Minority Report, which Minority Report had a much bigger kind of plot and angle to it rather than sitting in a chair for God knows how long trying to solve things. Now, I did spoil myself on the movie, so I do know it's not solely doing that, but it doesn't really matter. Beyond that, people don't want to deal with AI. And I don't mean that in terms of AI. I mean like the subject of AI. Tron Ares was another example of this, where I think people just don't like the idea of AI. in terms as a movie focus right now. And you might be saying, well, what about like 2001: A Space Odyssey? What about Terminator? What about a couple other films like iRobot's another one where they yes, but keep in mind when all those films came out, they came out well before the true age of AI. We're kind of now starting to live in the age of AI to a certain degree, and people are very, especially when it comes to the movie and entertainment industry, are very, very, very skeptical about AI, and they're very unhappy about like concepts like AI. So I think honestly, ideas that involve AI movie wise right now not are not going to be profitable. I think the idea wasn't isn't the best to begin with. I mean, it's a base concept. There's nothing wrong with the idea of the movie, but in terms of like getting people in the theater, that wasn't going to be it. It felt like honestly more of a streaming movie, and I think AI is just not a very profitable idea for a movie right now. That also said, I look, I don't personally have a problem with Chris Pratt. I know Chris Pratt has kind of said some things based on his like religious views and stuff like that, but I don't personally have a problem with Chris Pratt. But I know some people have soured on Chris Pratt. I know that. I'm not going to stick my head in the sand on that. I just don't think it's. I don't think it's like the deciding factor because, quite frankly, no actor is like it sells a movie anymore. No actor can be the star of a movie and people will go simply to see that actor. That's not the way the movie industry works anymore. Honestly, it wasn't really how the movie industry worked when Chris Pratt really broke out. So, and when I say broke out, I mean like Guardians of the Galaxy and all, and then he was getting all these roles. Like that was kind of we had lost the era of the movie star at that point to begin with. There was a couple names you could still do, and it would still work, but we've now hit the point where even The Rock has had a couple bombs now. Red One, which I contend I like Red One, and I think that would have worked a lot better as a series than a movie. It's not perfect, but I had fun with Red One, honestly. And obviously the Smashing Machine, which is arguably his best performance ever to date. But yeah, even The Rock, who used to be like guaranteed you could make money with a movie with him, can't do it anymore. So yeah, we live in a different age, so I'm not going to go towards the Chris Pratt angle of that. No. But let's talk about some movies that did still make money and are still making money. Yes, the movies that are profitable are movies from last year that were already profitable. Fire and Ash made $7 million, dropping more than I thought it would. Dropped about 50%. It's currently at $1,378.6 or $79 million. Look, it's probably going to cap out around 1.4. It's still very profitable. Don't let anyone tell you this film's a failure. But again, we went over this last week about what this kind of means and what they need to do for the next movie. And James Cameron has even come out and said that if we're going to do 4 and 5, we need to figure out a way to make these damn films on a cheaper budget. And that I think is the next way to do innovation, because every one of these things that James Cameron does, every one of these movies, not just the Avatar movies, but like Titanic, James Cameron did Abyss, right? But like Titanic, Abyss, he's always found a way to innovate technology for movie making. He's pushing the boundaries. I think that's actually the next way to push the boundary, is not to push the boundary, but to concentrate the boundary, to figure out a way to do this, but do it more efficiently, and therefore you're not running the budget up so high. And I think that's really, but in terms of why this film just didn't do as well as the other ones, despite the fact I think it is my favorite of the three, I think it's just franchise fatigue now at this point. And franchise fatigue only really exists in certain circumstances. Like, I still don't think to this day we have superhero fatigue. We have bad movie fatigue. If all the Marvel movies have been hitting the same level of like quality as they had been during their peak, we would not be having this conversation about comic book movie fatigue. It's mediocre movie fatigue. But I think franchise fatigue does happen when you're not changing up the formula enough. The second movie, which I contend is probably better than the first overall, it looks better too. But it is just like they're really just rehashing the first movie again. They really are just on the water with the water wildlife and the water people now. The third movie is the most different, but unfortunately, I think they kind of poisoned the well on they're still repeating a bunch of tropes, or repeating a bunch of story elements, or continuing story elements that a lot of people didn't care about. So I think overall, I think overall they need to try something different. If we do get the fourth one, hopefully that is different enough to catch the interest, and hopefully they can make it on a cheaper budget, and B, they are able to maybe give us something new and grand. Because I'll say this has the worst isn't the right word, the weakest climax of the three. I've always said this. I think the third movie is the overall best. I think the second movie looks the best. And I think the first movie has the best climax. That's what each of these kind of brings to the table. Zootopia 2, 5.7 million, dropping again, 37.8%. Benefits to be the only family animated film in town. Look, it's at $1,744,000,000. It is not breaking the next record. It's not doing that, but it doesn't need to. It is cemented as the highest grossing animated film of all time, not Niza 2. I'll always do it. Like, people are gonna probably say, you don't have to keep saying that. Yeah, no, I do, because I'm gonna have someone watch it saying, no, you're wrong. Like, no, I'm not. Because of the reasons we've discussed multiple times. And if you need me to explain the reasons again, you can just say why in the comments, and I'll say, yeah, this is why. But look, I mean, could it maybe edge out into the 1.8 billion column? Because it's the only member right now of the $1.7 billion club. Could it be the only member of the $1.8 billion club? With 56 million more to go, that is a tall order, as it is clearly running out of juice now. I would say it's not impossible, but it's very unlikely, but it's irrelevant to the conversation. Zootopia 2 isn't just the highest grossing animated film of all time. It's one of the highest grossing films, period. I believe it is the 9th or 8th highest grossing film, if I remember correctly, of all time. Let me just double check that real quick. It's way up there. Let's see here. Okay, worldwide. Total overall gross, minusing that Niza 2 isn't legit. Okay, it's the eighth highest grossing film of all time in the grand scheme of things. And there's no way it's catching Spider-Man No Way Home. It's the only member of the $1.9 billion club. There's no way it's doing that. But again, doesn't need to. It is cemented in history as one of the all times. So good for Zootopia 2. Couldn't happen to a nicer movie. It's a wonderful movie. 28 years later, The Bone Temple. Okay. Oof. 66.5% drop. Worldwide has only made $35.9 million against a $60 million budget. What went wrong here? Me and my girlfriend actually, again, I was supposed to see Mercy this week. Me and my girlfriend literally got into the theater. We sat in our seats, and we're getting ready to watch the movie. And I can't remember how I got brought up, but I mentioned, well, if I realized you were gonna be able to make it, I didn't realize there was a 9:45 showing of Bone Temple we could have just seen. And she goes, really? It's like, yeah. I mean, do you want to just swap our tickets? It's like, can we? I'm like, screw it. And we went up and go and see Bone Temple. This is my second time seeing it. I don't normally go out to see movies more than once these days, just because I'm doing this so often. I only got so much money, so much time. Every once in a while, there's a movie where I just have to go watch it again. And that scene in Bone Temple, and if you've seen the movie, you know what scene I'm talking about, with Ralph Fiennes near the end, it was worth it. Because the minute that music started playing, my girlfriend starts like smiling ear to ear, and then she just starts jamming out, and she calms down from what thinking is done, and then we see him come out doing the thing. She goes, ah! And her and the few people who were in the front went, woo! It was awesome. I'm like, this was worth it. This was totally worth it. But 66% drop. This isn't a issue of competing movies, really. 11 million. It only opened on 12 million roughly. Like, Mercy didn't really steal anything from this film. And the reviews, both critically and audience-wise, are fantastic. So, like, 90-something% from the critics, 80-something% from the audience. So where did they go wrong on this one? Because it's not the quality of the movie. I can speak to that. It's not the quality of the movie. Everyone I've seen who's seen it, it's not the quality of the movie. Um, I think it comes to, again, I think it comes down to several things that we brought up last week. I think it comes down to, first off, it didn't have a strong opening, and therefore less of a strong opening means less people are coming back. Even if it did take a 50% drop, it still would have been only like $6 million worth of, like, so when you take opening isn't that strong, it doesn't matter what the drop offs are unless you're on an extremely low budget. But I think, again, I think that last film hurt it a little bit because the last film was good, from what I understand, was pretty good up until a point, and then a lot of people kind of lost it. But I personally think, and let me see here, 28. Let me look up the 28 year, 20 something years. Okay, 28. Let's just look up 28 real quick. Okay, so 20 years later, came out last year, made roughly 151 against the $50 million budget. It opened far greater than this, 30 million. Okay, fine. Great, wonderful. We had 28 days later in 2002. That one only made $74 million, but it was against a $8 million budget. It made complete sense to make another one. 28 weeks later, 5 years later, made about the same amount, 72. They don't give a budget here, but we assume it was either enough to break even or it was not enough because, the next one comes out years later. Now, the next one comes around, does make a lot more, but I think we see the problem immediately with this. The fans of this franchise have never been a huge part of the movie going audience. And so even though the last one made like 150, which for the budget was almost fine, it wasn't like a huge draw for like crowds or anything like that. So you're talking about a franchise that isn't clearly as popular as other people maybe think it is. And then it's coming off a movie that did fine, but not great. And you get the stigma of being released in January. So unfortunately, this film is gonna not do so well, which sucks because we really enjoyed it. The House made 4.2 million. It's, oh man, you want to talk about a film that just kind of took off. 217 million against a $35 million budget. I mean, you do the math. The film's, roughly speaking, is at best made on like a $70 million. Is made on 70 million or 60 million. Take your pick. Because that marketing budget was not huge. It was not big at all. So you do the math on this. This film has cleared almost 100 million in profit. Almost 100 million. I mean, again, take the third out. The film's almost on like a 150 after the overall's taken out of the equation. Maybe not 150, like 142. Even if I highballed it and gave it the same budget as the production budget as the marketing, or marketing as the production, that means you're still looking at a film that made $70 million. And that's on the low end. Like $70 to $80 million what the profit range right now is for this film. I don't know if they were expecting it to suddenly like take off like that, but good for them. Now for Housemaid 2, the Housemaiden. That's a joke. It's based off a book. Unless they made a sequel to the book, which I doubt. Marty Supreme made 3.5 million, one of your big Oscar contenders this year. By the way, I'm not going to do an Oscar. I've kind of just stopped doing Oscar videos, but I'll say this: if you want me to do a video talking about the Oscars, let me know. Look, it's cleared $105 million. It's still made on like 60 some odd million dollars. It's not. The film is not going to be profitable. The film is just simply not. Give me one second. What is Marty Supreme's actual budget, if I remember correctly? Marty Supreme. Okay, Marty. Not Marty. There we go. Marty Supreme. What is the budget on this film? I doubt they're going to give me the marketing budget. They rarely do, but production budget, I think we can find that real quick. All right. By the way, I'm going to Wikipedia to find the budget because there'll be lists. Okay. Wait, really? Oh no, sorry. Between 60 and 70 million. So again, do the math on that. You're looking at roughly 65 million. Wasn't heavily marketed, so I'm going to be nice and say 30 million on the marketing. Though they might be adding more after Oscar nomination, but I don't think they will. So you're looking at a film roughly on $95 million. Even if I lowball that, let's just lowball that for a second. Let's say 25. Hell, let's say 80 million. Let's just say 80 or 20 million. That's 85 million. The film still has to hit 130 something to break even, and that's the lowest ball I'll go. probably like more likely around 25 to 30. I'm gonna lean on the high end and say 30. So 95 million. It needs to be, roughly speaking, 140 to break even. I do not see that happening, but stranger things have happened. Return to Silent Hill had one of the worst reviews I've ever seen, so, and it's not making money. And I don't think anyone. We're talking about a franchise nobody cares about. Hamnet's doing well for the Oscars. Lord of the Rings still around. Primate's only at 30 million. Anaconda is Anaconda-ing at 128. It's a pretty lackluster weekend. But next week we got Send Help, we got Iron Lung, and Shelter. I'll go Send Help, Mercy. You know what? Yeah, screw it. I know. I'm gonna reverse that. I'm gonna say Send Help, Shelter, because who doesn't love a good Jason Statham flick? Even Working Man turned, I think, a little bit of a profit. But Send Help, Shelter. I'll then say Iron Lung just for shits and giggles. I'll put Avatar and Zootopia above Mercy. Mercy's taking a massive drop next week. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.